I was miserable in my life. I didn't like waking up. I ain't have no purpose. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. On October 8th, 1985, I walked in a comedy club for the first time. Signed up for the following week. The following week, a girl took me down there. She said, "You got to go to comedy club. You're the funniest person I've ever met." I never even heard of comedy clubs. I'm 27. I walked in the comedy club. I signed up for the following week. I'm gonna sit here and learn. I knew I was funny. I just didn't know what to do with it. They had 10 acts go up. 9 of them went up. I didn't laugh at one joke. I was just sitting there just, man, I wish that was me. Man, they should have said this. Every joke they told, I knew the punchline before they said it, and I wrote a better punchline in my mind, what they should have said. It got to guy number 10, they called his name, he wasn't there. They said, well, he's not here, we're gonna go to next week's list. Steve Harvey, where are you? Long story short, I won amateur night that night. I won $50. It was a 45-minute drive to my house with this girl named Gladys. I cried 45 minutes. She said, "What you crying for? It ain't but $50. I said, no, you don't even understand. I was born tonight. I now know what I'm supposed to do. I went to work the next day, October 9th, and quit my job. With $50, I had nothing. I just never gave up. I'm gonna tell you something. That decision cost me everything I had. I lost everything. I lost my family. I lost friends. I lost everything. I became homeless. I lived in a car for 3 years. But I just saw this, I saw this vision. I just pursued it. I said, wow, that's it. You have to take chances in life. Life is about risk. If you play it safe in life, you ain't gonna have much of a life. If you play it safe, you won't have much of a life. Life is risk. It takes courage to pursue your dream. Now, it's gonna cost you something. Most people are not willing to pay what it costs to go after your dream, because you're gonna have to hurt a little bit. And most people don't like being uncomfortable. If you don't wanna be uncomfortable, please do not pursue success, because success is a very uncomfortable feeling. And I just learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Life is hard. See, for every time you have a plan, a dream, an aspiration, or a goal, do you know what happens every time you have one of those? This thing comes along called life. It happens to everybody. Life has disappointments, it got peaks and valleys. You're gonna lose somebody you care about one day. That's a valley. Somebody gonna close the plant you thought was gonna stay open so you could retire. That's a valley. Somebody gonna fire you for an unjust cause. That's a valley. The people that got your credit card gonna sell their company, gonna sell their business to another credit card company. Your 18% go up to 26%. You don't even know why now. Your minimum didn't change because it's life. You can stop thinking that life fitting to be easy, because I got news for you, it ain't. That's a false hope to think you're gonna have a wonderfully carefree life. That's unthinkable. We all live in this bubble. What you gotta do, you gotta put more air in your bubble. You got to blow your bubble up. Expand yourself. Take yourself out your comfort zone. Do not live in your bubble. Put some more air in your bubble. If you stay in your comfort zone, that's where you will fail. You will fail in your comfort zone. Success is not a comfortable procedure. It is a very uncomfortable thing to attempt. So you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful. Start putting some pressure on. Put some pressure on yourself. Get out here and get about it. Look, I'd love to sugarcoat this thing for you. I'd love to tell you, look, you can go out here and get rich, do a couple of things. That ain't happening. You got to get real doggish. You got to get downright funky if you want to make it. Now, like I was telling you before, if you want to be ordinary, you ain't even got to listen to me. Just go on about your business. If you think ordinary is cool, ain't no problem. It's some really, really wonderful, ordinary people. But if you are sitting in this room and you have extraordinary aspirations, then you're going to have to do extra. You put extra on top of ordinary and you come up with extraordinary. It's no other way. I'm sorry, but here's the fact. All of you have extraordinary capabilities, all of you. You have to decide if you are willing to do the things to put you in that category.
Needless to say, those several hours between flights were both informative and enjoyable for my colleague. And we can all learn from this story. Don't concentrate on things you can't influence, like when the planes are going to take off. Instead, focus on things you can control. And when you meet somebody you can learn from, then learn everything you can while you've got the chance. You never know when you're going to come across a book or an article that will provide a piece of information that can transform your life. One thing is for sure, however, and I've said this many times, the book you don't read isn't going to help. And it's the same with meeting people. You never know who is going to be able to teach you exactly what you need to know. Even if you don't need to know it now, you might need to know it at some point in the future. That might not be for 15 years, but it might just be in 15 minutes, too. A number of years ago, there was a movie out. I think it was called Being There. And it was the story of a not very bright man who worked all his life as a gardener, but who through a series of comical coincidences became an advisor to the President of the United States. Now, whenever the President asked this gardener his opinion on anything, he would always answer in terms of what he knew, which of course was gardening. But the President wouldn't realize that he was talking about gardening at all. Instead, the President was sure he was speaking in metaphors and allegories, that he was making wise analogies between the world of nature and the world of human affairs. Now, I value straight speaking as much as the next man, maybe more than the next man, and I don't want to take up your time with figures of speech that might belong to a poem or a play or a movie. But with respect to the topic of patience and its role in building a strong character, I do think that gardens have lessons to teach us all, lessons about sowing and reaping, about tending and keeping. For example, there's a story about W.C. Fields, the old Hollywood comedian. Fields bought himself an unusual type of cactus called a century plant. It's called a century plant because it blooms so rarely that it seems like it only happens once every 100 years, although in fact the time is much shorter. Anyway, Fields had purchased a century plant from a florist who was either misinformed or not entirely honest, because he told the comedian that the century plant was just about to burst into bloom. And wasn't that an exciting thing? It apparently excited W.C. Fields because the notoriously cheap comedian agreed to pay top dollar for the rare treat of seeing the century plant produce a flower. Well, Fields invited all of his friends over to his house to witness the historic event. The company arrived, food and drink was served, and all eyes were on the plant, but no flower was forthcoming. Finally, outraged and embarrassed by the uncooperative cactus, Fields took a riding crop and began to furiously thrash the plant, all the while he was shouting, "Bloom, you fool, bloom!" This was a situation, and there are a lot of them, where you can try anything you want in order to hurry things up, but things just aren't going to hurry. In fact, there's only one thing that will work, and that is patience. It's strange, but young people have a much more difficult time with patience than people who have more experience in the world. It seems like the older people get, the more able they are to wait, despite the fact that sometimes they have considerably less time to wait in. You could argue that older people ought to learn how to act quickly and decisively, while younger people need to learn how to wait. When you're young, you really have just about all the time in the world, and you just can't wait to use it. For a young person to have patience is a rare and powerful thing. How can we explain that impatience of the young? Maybe it's because when you're a teenager or in your early 20s, 1 year seems like a very long time. 5 years seems like forever, and 10 years is almost more than you can possibly imagine. But more mature individuals can actually look back 10 or 20 or even 30 years. And they can use the knowledge they've gained to create patience and a sense of perspective.
We have added approximately 70 people in Canada since March. Good people, really good people. That's our idea. Does it scare us? Yeah, sometimes. Do we doubt? Yeah, sometimes. Do we experience some anxiety? Yep, sometimes. Some more than others. But that wouldn't stop us, because we understand. If we advance confidently in the direction of our dreams and endeavor to live the life we've imagined, we're going to meet success unexpected in common hours. Now, you've got to make a commitment. We made a commitment. It's not an accident that we attracted all these people. It's not an accident we're doing what we're doing. It's not an accident this program is going to be in millions of hands very, very shortly. This particular program on video is going to be one of the most professional productions that is on the market today. The seminar already is. There's nothing that will equal this seminar, not in the market today. We've had doctors, we've had lawyers, psychiatrists, some of the most senior executives in some of the largest companies in the world tell us there's nothing will equal this. And I know why. I know why. Because we're giving an understanding to a person of who they really are. We're not just giving them some technique that's intellectual or physical or academic. Power's within you. You got to write out your commitment. A commitment is a directive to yourself. It's a directive to yourself. I remember one time reading somewhere that the mark of a superior performer is a person that can give themselves a command and then follow it. That's what's on that page. Now, on page 51, we say, remember, it makes no difference whether your goal is starting a new business, buying a new automobile, a position at work, setting a sales record, or earning an honors mark in school. Whatever it may be, you must step out boldly and pursue it. Look at the win that Al Spazzeri is enjoying today, and he is just starting. It's like Haps Adandanak in that letter. This show is only one small step in the direction of greater things you can do, many of which are beyond your wildest dreams. And I would imagine that Al sometimes has to shake his head, and I would imagine Marge does too.
Every leader I have ever known had a dream, had a vision. In fact, I would say to you, if you're not seeing what could be and what you would like to have, I would say you probably are not a leader. But what I've discovered about dreams is this: dreams are free, but the journey isn't. And so leaders go beyond just having a dream. They go beyond having a wish list, sitting around a table and kind of hoping something might come to pass. They understand that if they have a dream, if they're a dreamer, they have to pursue that. They have to take the journey. The dream's free, the journey isn't. And what leaders find is that when they go forth through that dream, they continually have to pay that price. They continually have to realize that they make down payments on the dream they have. But there's one thing else I would like to say. All leaders realize that whatever they pay, it's worth the price, because dreams for them do come true.
You could live your life the way that you want to live. that's a matter of action, and they say actions speak louder than words. And one of the best things you could possibly be is a inspirational example. So that's not nothing. That's something. Live properly in your defiance of the crowd, right? Make your own course. Allow yourself to be guided by your own genuine principles. You don't necessarily have to advertise that, which is in some sense what you're doing when you're debating, because you're taking the manner in which you act, like if you're an integrated person and you're articulating that. But maybe you can't do that because you don't have the verbal skills. Well, then the question would be, maybe you should develop some more verbal skills. I don't know this for sure, Dave, but generally it's useful. How do you do that? Doesn't hurt to read. Really doesn't hurt to write. A little bit of writing every day clarifies your thinking. You need a value hierarchy. It's inevitable that you have a value hierarchy and that you look at the world through it, and that it should be well structured, and that there should be something of divine importance at the top. I would say what should occupy the top position is the realization, for example, that each person is of divine value, and that the most appropriate way of interacting with potential is by embodying and speaking the truth. That's not a bad way of briefly conceptualizing what might be at the highest pinnacle of the value structure. I would say that's what the logos is.
Look at these two men. Do you know who they are? Most people don't. They're just a couple of ordinary guys. One, they're both gone now, but one was an ordinary beekeeper in Auckland, New Zealand, and the other a Sherpa guide from over around Nepal. Now there's Mount Everest. Do you know for thousands of people had tried to get to the top of Mount Everest. People died doing it. It was believed it couldn't be done. People tried, but they didn't know how, and so they quit. There's a closer look at the mountain and where they placed their flag. They planted that flag in the mountain. Now this is the two of them after they come down the mountain. And you know something? When they started, they did not know how. They didn't know how to get to the top of the mountain. And that's what stops most people, because they don't know how. As little kids, we'd go, Mommy, Daddy, I want this. And they say, now, how are you going to do that? Well, as a little kid, you don't know how to do it. But they did it. In 1953, on the 29th of May, they were the first two to get to the top of that mountain. They stood right on top of the world. Do you know there's been over 1,000 people do it since then? I watched a young woman on Canadian television being interviewed, not very big. She had just come back from going to the top of Mount Everest. And the reporter asked her, they said, how does it feel now that you conquered the mountain? She said, we didn't conquer the mountain. That mountain can't be conquered. We conquered the limitations that are within ourselves.
What is the identity of your brand? Right? Is it Mercedes-Benz or Volkswagen? Is it Adidas or Nike? Is it bright colors or dull colors? Every brand has an identity, and you have to choose, when you are building your personal brand, an identity that resonates with who you are. When you're a personal brand, you have to be an authentic you. And so in order for your brand to show up as you, what does your brand say about you? So here are a couple of questions that you may consider. Many of you have followed my work for quite some time. Would you agree that there's a consistent theme about what I teach and how I teach it, right? Is there a consistent theme around mindset, around skill set, and around action set? Do you notice that if you followed my work, for a year or 2 or 3 or 4, I specialize on the neuroscience and neuropsychology of success. That's my theme, my underlying theme. If you've noticed, another part of my brand is consistency, right? So I show up Tuesdays, every Tuesday, right here at 9 o'clock Pacific time, which is San Diego, right? So when you are thinking about your personal brand, I want you to take out a sheet of paper and I want you to write down, what does your personal brand look like? If you take a look at, my book, Inner Size, okay, my newest best-selling book, not The Answer, but Inner Size. If you take a look at Having It All, if you take a look at the colors, in my office on the wall, right? Look at that, the colors on the wall. If you take a look at the colors, of my company, NeuroGym, there's a consistency of colors, right? Right? There's a consistency of colors. And so one of the things that you have to understand when you're developing a personal brand is you're developing coherence in somebody's brain around your colors, your theme, what you stand for, what you're all about. And so the first thing to consider when you're developing your personal brand is first to define what is your personal brand. 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 Personal brand.